Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, listen, ladies and gentlemen, the countdown to war has begun in the Middle East, and it's already begun. Now, I was talking about, look, before I get into this, we're going to be talking about Iran on this live stream, and we're going to be talking about the sleeper cells that are already in the United Kingdom, the Iranian-backed sleeper cells that are operating in the United Kingdom. So, before I get onto that, in fact, before I get onto that, make sure you hit those buttons down below, ladies and gentlemen. Like, follow, subscribe, bell notification, like all those down there. Before I get into this, I just want to, point out that these things have been written for a long time. It's always been the intention for the United States to go into the Middle East. They wrote this in U.S. law in November 2023. Now, we're heading towards this direction of global warfare, global conflict on an industrial scale. So as we are right now, I'm going to give you guys an update on what's happening in the Middle East because it's getting closer and closer. The United States are moving more assets into that region. Doesn't look like there's any real, negotiation or peace or nuclear deal that can be had at the moment. The Iranians are also rattling the saber by closing the Strait of Hormuz. And if you live in the United Kingdom, what do you think's going to happen to the sleeper cells that we already know are operating in the United Kingdom? What do you think is going to happen? Remember, we don't have anything to do with this. Now, that's one of the reasons why you saw these diversions, right? You saw the United Kingdom break away from the United States, the United Kingdom, NATO, minus America, focus on Europe, on, Ukraine and the Russians. And the United States, they don't need anyone else to go with them into the Middle East. Yes, of course, they've got their regional partners, Israel. But the United States, they're the big boys in town, right? They've got all the ships, they've got all the aircraft, they've got all the logistics, they've got all the manpower. They don't need anyone to back them going into the Middle East. What would happen is, if for example, Britain, France, Germany assisted them going into the Middle East, then the British Iranians, the French Iranians, and the German Iranians, or anyone who is, allied to that regime, they would just go bonkers on the streets, right? So it's damage limitation, it's damage mitigation, and it's global conflict on an industrial scale heading. That's where we're heading right now. There isn't a runoff. There isn't a runoff, guys. There isn't. So as we move forwards, guys, the Middle East is looking more like it's looking a bigger. It's looking it's a bigger powder keg than it ever has been. In Britain, we could feel that blast sooner than we think. The news is grim. Donald Trump has ramped up the pressure on Iran, moving more major U.S. naval assets, including USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Carrier Group, right into that region, flexing muscles with exercises that scream out, "We are ready for offensive action." Now, when you do these exercises, they're kind of not exercises, they're war rehearsals. There's no such thing as an exercise, it's a war rehearsal. And what you are rehearsing is the most likely event. That's what you always rehearse. You don't, military medics do not deal with childbirth, right? Because the likelihood you're going to have to deal with the childbirth is like teensy. So they deal with gunshot wounds, they wouldn't deal with trauma, they deal with massive hemorrhage, they deal with airway problems, sucking chest wounds, so you deal with the most likely things, right? So Donald Trump's laid it out plain and simple. He said no deal on the nuclear program, and the US strike could follow. That's what he said, plain and simple. If you don't get a deal done, we can't get a deal done on the nuclear program, US strikes could follow. And Iran, well, they're not backing down either. The supreme leaders fired back with a chilling warning. Warships are dangerous, but what's deadlier is something that can send them to the bottom of the sea. So that was a direct threat on US warships, on the US naval assets. Again, I'm not convinced they do have assets that can sink US warships. They've just run a live drill in the Strait of Hormuz. Missile strikes on dummies, simulated tanker seizures, even temporarily shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Now, look, guys, back when all this started, I was talking about the Strait of Hormuz. It's like high-end estimates. Nobody really knows how much oil goes through that. But some estimates are that 20% of the world's oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a 60-mile choke point on the south coast of Iran. The Iranians can absolutely close that down. And I can remember when I first started doing these videos and I got people on the chat, the Iranians won't be able to close it down. The US is sending a strike carrier group. I'm like, all right, okay. I mean, the Houthis closed down the Red Sea and they don't even have a navy, right? So let's just leave it at that. Zero ships are going to go through the Strait of Hormuz if it's closed by the Iranians and they say they're going to sink these ships. Why? It's got nothing to do with military might. It's got to do with their insurance, right? Their insurance companies are going to say, what? Yeah, Raven Logistics, right? Let's just say Raven Logistics. Raven Logistics has an oil fleet, right? Let's just say I've got 12 ships, right? I've got 12 oil tankers and they go from Kuwait to wherever, through the Strait of Hormuz, right? If the Iranians say, we're going to close down the Strait of, we're going to sink any ship that goes through the Strait of Hormuz without our permission, my insurance company ain't going to pay. They're going to phone me up straight away and say, Sean, yes, mate, yeah. You know, if you sail through the Strait of Hormuz, yeah, your insurance is void, mate, right? It's absolutely void. I'm not going to sail through, not a chance. I'm not going to take that risk. So that's how you close it down, right? That's literally how you close it down. And then I would have to then apply for permission from the Iranians, probably pay them a hefty fee, and then I'd be able to go through. So that's how they will close it down. It's a narrow choke point where, some high-end estimates, like I said, 1/5 of the world's oil, 20% flows through. One wrong move, global energy prices will absolutely rocket. They will rocket, guys. Scarcity, supply and demand, diesel. Like, nobody talks about this. Like, I don't know anybody else who's spoken about this because a lot of people, they come on the internet. Let me have some coffee. Have I got any left? Yeah. People don't mention this. I was in Ukraine when this happened. Fuel rationing in the United Kingdom, okay? Diesel, it will just be gone, all right? Worst case scenario, diesel will be gone. Diesel will be absolutely gone. All logistics, everything runs on diesel, right? Think about all the infrastructure. It all runs on diesel. So worst case scenario, I think diesel will just be off the pumps. All that diesel will go to the military, it will go to logistics, it will go to the government, right? It has to do that. It's why, our bug out car, we've got a bug out car. I've got a roof tent on, I've got a roof tent at the moment on the bug out vehicle, and I'm just thinking about taking it off because it's attracting too much attention. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. So our bug out car, it's petrol, because I'm considering that if we do need to use that vehicle, we won't be able to get diesel. So if tankers get seized or sunk, the whole economy will feel it. Petrol pumps, diesel pumps, the price of everything will skyrocket overnight. And that doesn't just affect you guys at the pump. That doesn't mean you guys are paying, 2-3 quid a litre. What that means is everything goes up. So your deliveries, your Deliveroos, they're going up. Your bus fares are going up. Anything that you get transported, that's going up because everything comes from energy, right? So Iran's foreign minister came out of indirect talks, sounding a little bit hopeful that diplomacy might still have legs. I don't think it will, saying the groundwork for negotiations is there, but a long way off. Now, what does that even mean? The groundwork? You see, when you go to these negotiations, you have to say something positive when you come out. You absolutely do. Even if that's been the worst meeting ever, because tactically, right, if you're stalling for time, you want another negotiation, don't you? Because you have these negotiations, it's just like blah, blah, blah. You go in there to these negotiations and you literally blah, blah, blah. Neither side wants to come to an agreement, but both sides are buying for time while their militaries get ready. And then colonels are on the phone like, yeah, mate, I need another 2 weeks to get this stuff in. Yeah, we need this stuff. Yeah, hurry up. No, keep them talking. Keep them sweet. The Iranian regime seems Trump's terms as a straight-up surrender bill. The waterways are now clogged, rival navies drilling for war. What could go wrong? What could go wrong, ladies and gentlemen? What could go wrong when you've got two navies? I think they're about 200 miles away at the moment. You've got the Iranian Navy and the US Navy. Like, I think they're about 200 miles away from each other, right? Both drilling for war. It's crazy. There's plenty that could go wrong, guys, okay? Escalation feels inches away. Full-blown conflict could erupt literally anytime, right? Like anytime right now, full-blown conflict could erupt. Remember, 2 years ago, I was saying Trump will have boots on the ground March 2026. I don't know, guys. I don't know. What do you think? So there could be US or Israeli airstrikes hitting Iranian targets on the south coasts. You know, Tehran, they're not going to sit there, right? They're not going to sit there. They'll hit back with asymmetric warfare. They've got missiles. They've got drones. They've got all sorts of shadowing networks that they have built throughout the Middle East and in the West. Let's not forget, guys, okay? Here in Britain, right? This is where it gets personal for everybody in Britain, right? Because here in the United Kingdom, MI5 have been quite clear, and I've done lots of videos on this. I don't want to keep this going on this video because I've got quite a lot to get through today. MI5's been quite clear that the threat from Iran is persistent and unpredictable. It's rising fast. Since early 2022, they've disrupted over 20 potentially lethal Iranian-backed terror plots on UK soil. This includes assassinations, kidnapping, intimidation, and anyone the regime sees a threat. The IRGC, the Iranians' elite force, uses criminal proxies, drug traffickers, and low-level crooks. Now, this is the new... Spill my coffee. This is the new weapon of war, right? This is the new weapon of war. So we all laugh. We all think it's funny. When the Russian Navy, when the Russian Navy come through with their steaming, with their aircraft carrier, and they have to bring a tug because it keeps breaking down, we all laugh at other militaries because of whatever. The reality is, warfare's changed. It's changed. And the problem is, the people in charge in the West, not so much America. I think America understand this. Certainly in Britain. Your colonels, your military army colonels, naval, I don't know, admirals or whatever, and your air marshals in the Air Force or whatever. The problem with those guys, right? The problem is they are you're the head of the army, right? The head of the army. Every problem he will give an army solution, right? Every problem, The head of the Air Force, every problem he will give an Air Force solution, right? The head of the Navy, every problem he will see a naval option. The problem here is, if you only know how to use a hammer, you're going to see every problem as a nail, right? Every problem is going to be a nail. Asymmetric warfare, non-conventional warfare. I would say we have a lot. I'm just going to say a lot, right? I'm not going to put a number on it. We have a lot of people in this country who you could pay a small amount of money and they would commit sabotage, right? So let's just say you go to a criminal gang and say, right, lads, I'll give you $5,000 if you go and burn down that substation next Tuesday at 2:00 in the morning. Whatever, Right, lads, I'll give you $5,000 if you go and cut a chunk out of this railway, out of this particular railway line next Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the morning. Has to be done at that very specific time, you know. And then you can coordinate these attacks, right? Can you imagine? Can you imagine a missile, right? A missile that, right, let's just pretend, right, that whoever, country X, they want to derail a train and they want to have bad things happen to the people on that train. It's a very specific train and they know somebody's going to be moving on that train, right? They can send their drones over to do an airstrike, you know, to do massive, you know, mass casualty events. They can absolutely do that. If you think, like, for this type of drone, just the camera system on that drone, you're looking at like 50 grand, right? You're looking at like 50 grand just for the camera system, right? Dollars, $50,000. So whatever that is in pounds. Just for the camera. Then you've got all the rest of it. Then you've got the munitions. So these munitions are very expensive, right? When you then weigh that against the cost of the return goods, so if you send your drones, your missiles, and all the rest of it to take out that train, you're going to get a response, right? You're going to get a full-scale military response. It's going to be expensive, both in the cost of time, money, effort, resources, and you're going to lose a load of shit because you're going to get a load of missiles come back at you, right? That's what's going to happen. However, if you pay a criminal gang 5 grand at a certain time to take out the train tracks before this train comes along, yeah, you might not do the job, but the drones might not do the job either. But look at the cost. Look at the deniability. So, you know, groomed recruits I'm going to speculate that there are online groomed recruits in the United Kingdom. I'm going to say that there are, you know, there's already a network of sleeper cells in the United Kingdom. And this will also, and then you will also get the lone wolves, the people who are not groomed online, the people who are not part of official sleeper cells, just people who want to go crackers, who think, yeah, you know what, I'm having some of this. Experts from King's College London and the Henry Jackson Society have warned that these aren't cartoon villains. These are, you know, they're embedded in communities, holding regular jobs. And I would say these sleeper cells are working their way up through the, maybe through the legal system. Maybe some of them are police officers. Maybe some of these sleeper cells are councillors. Maybe some of these sleeper cells are councillors in local council. Maybe there's even one in the, maybe the prime minister's even, you know, a sleeper cell or a, you know, politically exposed person. I don't know. I wouldn't speculate that. I'm just saying maybe he is, which is speculation, but whatever. Reports from last year even pointed to Iran's Revolutionary Guard actively grooming Middle Eastern and Eastern Europeans in the United Kingdom to form these networks ready to activate. This is happening, guys. It's come out on mainstream media that that these sleeper cells are already operating in Britain. They are. There's no denying that, right? There's absolutely no denying that. Now, normally, if you guys think of an like the tip of an iceberg, right? We only find out about the tip of an iceberg. So we only find out, you know, look, guys, I've got no inroads to intelligence services in the United Kingdom. I don't do that. What I can do is give you guys speculation analysis from what's being released on mainstream media. And if you think, you know, the tip of an iceberg, we only find out about that very tippity top bit, I would say that the iceberg goes a lot deeper. So if war breaks out with Iran, and I think it will, March 2026, I've been quite clear about that before Donald Trump was even elected. I was saying Trump's going to go into Iran March 2026, but whatever. What do I know? So if, and it is an if at this moment, guys, because it's, you know, it's nothing's a given. But if Trump green light strikes, if the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked, like they're exercising at the moment. Remember, there are no exercises anymore. They're war rehearsals. If the regime, the Iranian regime's survival feels at stake, those sleeper cells could and probably will get the order to evacuate. Retaliation will not just be regional, it will be global. It will be asymmetric. It will be grey. It will be non-conventional. Think targeted attacks on infrastructure, symbolic sites, stabby, rammy, high-profile figures, or worse, stirring chaos in our cities to hit back at Western support for Israel or the United States. We've seen the pattern before. Iran uses proxies like Hezbollah or criminal gangs to maintain deniability. And the United Kingdom has already been a target of multiple attacks. With tensions as high as they are right now, and the regime cornered, the risk has spiked dramatically. Yes, diplomacy might still work. I don't think it will. I think both sides are negotiating like that with their hands behind their back. Yes, of course. Yes, we will. I don't think the negotiations are going to come. I don't think the negotiations are going to do anything, really. You know, the Iranians are quite adamant they want to have a nuclear weapon, and the Americans are quite adamant that they're not, that they don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. The clock's ticking. Warships are shadowing each other right now. One miscalculation could light the fuse. Here at home in the United Kingdom, we are in a very peculiar place right now. We are here in the United Kingdom. We are absolutely ready to pop. Here in the United Kingdom, we're a tinderbox ourselves. We're a tinderbox of division, tribalism. Tribalism's coming, guys. I think it is. I would say it's already here. Tribalism. We've got these guys and those guys, and like I always say, when this breaks out, right? When this breaks out, and look, guys, I don't think it can not break out at the moment. First of all, people shouldn't dismiss the warnings that have been on the mainstream media, right? I think it was the outgoing MI5 boss or something. He said that they have actively disrupted attacks using firearms and explosives. These are mass events, right? And like I always say when I'm talking about this stuff, we see the ones on the news and the police have foiled them, and it was a 3-year undercover operation, and they've all been arrested now. Like I always say, do you think that that's it now? That's everyone caught. All the cells, they've all been caught. Or do you think there are cells out there operating that have not been caught? They're operating under the radar. No one knows they're there. I would say the latter's quite true. And when it comes, it will happen quickly and it will escalate quickly. Right, listen, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're talking about today on the chat. I've got loads of stuff to go through today. I'm going to have to come on today. I think I'm probably going to have to do maybe 2 or 3 more videos this afternoon, because there's loads of stuff happening in the, in the alternate scene. Right, but let me jump up and get some questions on the chat. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Right, listen, if you're on, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, bell notification, all those things. The Watchman is saying everyone's going on about drones, but microwave transmitters, WEPs. I don't know what a WEP is. What's a WEPs? Weapons, I'm going to assume that is. Can drop them out of the sky. That's yes and no. They can and they can't. The problem with microwave emitters is you need a shitload of power, right? You need a shitload of power to for that microwave emitter to be to work. So, and predominantly we're talking about these ones here. These ones are the quadcopters. So the way a microwave emitter works, it fries the So there are a couple of ways a microwave emitter can work. First of all, it can stop the communications, right? So if these things are using radio frequency, right, it can fry its communications and it doesn't know what to it doesn't know where to communicate, right? Now, what they're doing in Ukraine, they're using fiber optic cable to control these drones, really thin cable. And that doesn't work with that. You can't jam that because it's on fiber optic cable. The other thing is the amount of energy that you need for a microwave emitter to be effective. You can't. They're not mobile, right? So if you're talking about like static locations, static sites, absolutely, you can have and they're expensive, right? They're really expensive. You can of course have a microwave emitter there or a laser, absolutely. But the amount of power and energy you need, it's not feasible on the front line. Like the size of the batteries you would need to carry and lug around with you, and then how do you recharge those batteries? It's just not feasible on the front line. Damn Doberman Company is saying my wifey Chan works for Scottish veterans. We got lots of English squaddies coming up Monday to Scotland. If you getting no joy in England? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, Dan Doberman. I don't know what that means. Tony Wilson is saying, and I pretty much know for a fact that our government here in the USA has UFO technology that is not to be messed with. Right. Guys, listen, I'm going to come on and I'm going to do another UAP. I'm going to do another UAP episode after this because there's loads of wild stuff being happening. Talking about, and I do think something big in that arena is coming. And look, guys, ladies and gentlemen, you fantastic people who watch me, who are on this live stream right now. I say wild shit all the time, right? I do. I say wild shit all the time. Before Donald Trump was even elected, right? Before he was even elected, I said, and I didn't change my mind, I've done 4 videos on this, right? I've done 4 videos. You guys can go scroll back and find them, like from years ago, right? Before Donald Trump was even elected, I was quite clear, and I said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is going to go into Iran March 2026. I said that like a long time ago. And I got a lot of people in the chat saying, oh, it's never going to happen, blah, blah, blah. If I said to you guys now, hey, everyone, it looks like, you'd be like, yeah, Sean, that's obvious. So when I'm saying wild stuff right now about UFOs and UAPs, it's not because I'm making it up and I just, it's because I'm genuinely seeing that, right? Now, again, whether you believe this is true or not, doesn't matter, right? It absolutely does not matter. Whether you think there's little green men like in little probe sticks, doing experiments, whether you feel that's true or not, right? It doesn't matter because the outcome is going to be the same, right? So I'm going to do more live streams on that later on, guys. Tony Wilson is saying the first wave of attack will be drones with EMTs. What's an EMT? The second might be robots, but who knows? We are not scared though. What do you mean? You mean an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse? I don't know what an EMT is, guys. I don't know what an EMT is. Emergency medical technician? I don't know what can somebody explain what an EMT is, guys? Or do you mean an EMP? Right, let me just jump up and get these comments on the chat. The Watchman is saying vets, I think you mean veterans, should get everything they need and not just be left out in the cold. Disgusting. Our government is, yeah, I agree. Listen, guys, I've done I know about this. Obviously I'm a veteran and I have got a lot of friends, all my friends really are veterans, and I understand like it's very difficult to move back into civilian life once you've been in the military. It's so difficult, because for example, right? If you say to somebody in the military, right, Sean, what time are you going to be there? Right. I'll say to you, right, I'll be there at 12. I'm probably going to be there at 11:45, and then I'll walk towards you at 11:55, and then I'll be there waiting at, I'll be there before 12. If you say to somebody like a civilian, what time will you be there? They'll say tea time. And you'll be like, what? What the fuck does tea time mean? Oh, I'll come over at tea time. And you're like, just, it's really difficult to adjust. Sherry Heppelstone is saying, I woke up at 12:30 last night by a loud noise. It was a Globemaster aircraft. Nothing never flies over at that time on a night. It was really loud. Sherry Heppelstone, where do you live? Do you live near an air? Obviously, I'm going to assume you live near an, live near an airfield. So the Globemaster, the C-17, I'm assuming you mean C-17 Globemaster. They're a huge US, well, Britain has them as well. It's a huge cargo ship, and, they obviously carry stuff. You can put like Chinook helicopters in the back of those things as well. They're huge. Rod Panhard is saying, Trump does not really like war. He prefers sneaky intelligence service-based operations. Yes, with Iran, the issue you have with Iran is where these nuclear facilities are. Where the nuclear facilities are in Iran, you can't really reach them by helicopter. You can reach them by helicopter, but you then have to drop your guys off. It becomes very difficult then to... Your guys will be isolated, right? They'll be left out on their own, and that's not a good thing. So if the United States want to close down these nuclear facilities, like the big one at Fordo, they need to send their guys in there, right? They need to have boots on the ground. Now that's, will be some that will be military. There'll be civilian contractors there as well, and you need to have that, you need to have that confirmation, right? That those nuclear facilities have been closed down and they ain't coming back online. So you just can't do that from the air. So you really would need boots on the ground at some point with these guys. I mean, there's an argument. You could parachute. You could use an airborne option. You could fly in. You could drop special forces in by parachute, but then how do you get them out? Getting the boots on the ground, that's the easy bit. Getting them out, that becomes the drama then, because we like Hollywood, right? And the movie industry has told us that a special forces operation is like six guys with silenced pistols. It's not like a special forces operation. You're dropping maybe 150 guys, maybe, into one of these nuclear facilities. They're going to have to fight their way through. They're going to have to fight their way out. They're going to have to improvise, adapt, overcome. There's a whole load of shit they're going to do. And then you're going to have to get those guys back out again. So it becomes very difficult, right? It becomes very difficult. Brian Celtic Brave is saying, it be a hybrid war, not conventional, apart from special ops spotting. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking, hang on a minute. Katrina is saying, poor buggers won't have parachutes soon. Yeah, absolutely embarrassing, ladies and gentlemen. The British Parachute Regiment are having their parachutes taken away from them to save, hear me out, this is going to save £8 million a year. £8 million. Do you know how pathetic that is, guys? That's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. It's ridiculous. to get rid of our parachute capability. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump back. Hang on, that one. So this is the headline I've been looking at the moment, guys. Okay, so the Middle East at the moment seemingly edging closer. The Middle East seemingly edging closer to war as Donald Trump moves warships and Iran drops any subtlety in response. So both sides now are literally, where is it? It says it here, down here somewhere. Hang on. Yeah. So Iran is not being subtle. So in exercises off one of the world's most strategic waterways, it left little doubts of its capability with missile strikes on dummy targets and simulated tanker seizures. And I don't think people are even ready or have even considered asymmetric naval warfare yet. Like, has anyone considered the prospect of asymmetric naval warfare? Milo is saying Iran doesn't stand a chance. No, I agree. Iran doesn't stand a chance initially. Now, the problem with the Middle East and the problem with the West is, and I'm pretty sure, I know Pete Hegseth knows this. He will definitely know this. If you get bogged down with the long boots on the ground in the Middle East, it's not good, right? It's not good. So what I think the strategy of the United States will be is to stay off the coast and send in small special forces raids. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to do a lot of this stuff from the air, and when they need to, they will put boots on the ground. But I don't think they're going to have the big ground invasion or the big landing. They may take something. But they don't want to get bogged down, right? They don't want another Iraq. They don't want another Afghanistan, because then you get mission creep. It becomes harder to pull out. Brian is saying it's been set up just like a Pearl Harbor. What are you talking about? Caveman is saying, I think Starlink is military drones. I kind of think Starlink is military drones. Well, Starlink, listen, can you guys remember when the drones were over, go on, New Jersey? Can you guys remember the New Jersey drones, right? Literally, Raven again told you guys what was happening before anyone else. Even now, people still think that was aliens. So the New Jersey drones, this was, when was it? Was it like October 24? I think the New Jersey drones was October 24, right? So I think it was October 24. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the drones, the UFOs, the UAPs over New Jersey, like, that was such a peculiar time, and it pointed at, if you guys knew what to look at and knew, if you get like, this was like a military operation, so I could understand this. First of all, I did a video and I said this was the US military practicing access and egress from their Northrop Grumman's Sea Manta, or is it Manta Ray? Sorry, Northrop Grumman's Manta Ray drone. Go and check that out, guys. That's what I think they were deploying drones from. They were also using Starlink as a communication system for those drones. Now, if you guys can remember, there was like, then you've got to look at the X feed, how the X feed was pumping certain videos. So there was a video, right, of like a US senator, and he was really flapping. Oh my God, we got to get out here. We got to see what these drones are. I don't know what it is. It could be aliens, man. It could be aliens. I was like, whoa, calm down, sunshine. And then there was people out there saying, I've worked with drones for 25 years, and they're operating on an unknown frequency. Like, that doesn't even make sense. You cannot operate on an unknown frequency. All frequencies are known, right? They're all known. All frequencies are known. Just the sentence in itself doesn't make sense. It's like having a ruler and saying, they're using an unknown number on this ruler. You're like, all fucking number. There's no such thing as an unknown frequency, right? All frequency, that frequency bandwidth, it's well known and understood. Now the problem was normal like drones. These ones predominantly. Those drones predominantly work with a ground station radio frequency, right? So they go down, up, transmit, right? Down, up transmissions. With Starlink, the the communication satellite system, right? Rather than going down, up, they're going up. Up. So so there's no ground signal, there's no radio frequency on the ground. It's all satellite communications. You only need to have a real little chip. So if you owned a satellite company that owned Starlink, for example, you would be able to do that like very easily. So guess what? Just for context as well, Elon Musk's brother owns a drone company. I'm just saying, guys, Elon Musk's brother owns a drone company. So that was what I said. That was like that. Those military drones. They weren't UFOs. They weren't aliens. It was literally the U.S. military testing their own equipment. David King is saying fish and chips. Fish and chips fighting in someone's house and causing havoc in people's streets. Is that what we're talking about? Rod Panhard is saying the US is so far behind the Chinese and the Russians that they need to make up BS to hide the fact that their military spending has gone to criminals rather than development. I don't know if they're behind. I don't think the US are behind with technology, but they're certainly behind with manufacturing capability. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I need a wee. I do. I need an absolute wee. Can you guys just hold on there for 2 minutes, like less than a minute, while I go and have a wee, and I'm going to come straight back. I'm going to come straight back, and I'm going to give you guys a rundown on what's happening in the Middle East and how that is going to affect and how that's going to spill onto the streets in the United Kingdom. Because don't forget, guys, we are going to have those people with the drums out going bum 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 bum. Right, give me a second. Thank you for hanging about, ladies and gentlemen. I do appreciate it. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, let me let's give a rundown on what's happening right now, because unless you're living in a cave, ladies and gentlemen, the military buildup in the Middle East is looking more like a powder keg than it ever has before. You've literally right now, you've got the Iranian Navy, I guess, like maybe whichever way you're looking, I don't know which way your perspective is. You've got the Iranian Navy doing military exercises, war rehearsals, and you've got the US Navy doing war rehearsals, and they're about 200 miles apart, which is phenomenal, which is absolutely phenomenal. You've got you've got nuclear deal negotiations. Now, look, the nuclear deal or the nuclear, the negotiations, basically, the negotiations. Donald Trump has said, We got to get a deal. We got to get a deal. If we don't get a deal, there's going to be U.S. strikes. U.S. strikes could follow. I think he used the word. Word he used? Traumatic. I think Donald Trump said it's going to be very traumatic for the Iranians if they don't, if they don't come up with a deal, basically. Now, for the Iranians, they're saying this looks like a straight up surrender deal. Iran's foreign minister, he came out of talks. He said diplomacy might still work, saying that the groundwork for negotiations is there, but it's a long way off. So that to me means we're buying for time, right? We're just holding out and trying to get as much time as possible. The Iranian regime, see Donald Trump's terms as straight up surrender. Now, listen, if you live in the United Kingdom, and I do, and I know a lot of you guys do as well, and you know what, across Europe as well, the United Kingdom is going to be under significant pressure because of RAF Akhmatari in Cyprus. That's the reality, right? The US military will be using RAF Akhmatari. Then we'll pretend they're not. We will absolutely pretend it's not happening, but it will be happening. So here in the United Kingdom, MI5 and the intelligence service have published several, warnings that the threat from Iran is persistent and unpredictable, and it's rising fast. Since early 2022, they've disrupted over 20 potentially lethal Iranian-backed attack plots on the United Kingdom. Some of these involve firearms and explosives, and this is out on the mainstream media, guys. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not speculating. This is out on the mainstream media. The IRGC, Iran's, I don't know if you guys know this as well, but the Iranian military, their military budget is 50-50. So what that means is 50% goes into conventional and 50% of their budget goes into non-conventional asymmetric warfare. Now, if you want to do that sort of stuff, you start to be able to make a lot of money, right? Because you can push drugs, you can push crime, you can push hacking, you can push extortion, all part of asymmetric warfare. And when it's state backed, very difficult to, very difficult. Like, let's just say there was an online gang, right? An online gang of hackers, right? A gang of online hackers. I don't know if this is the case. I would speculate there's a strong probability, but I don't know. Let's just say there's a gang of online hackers, and they've got all the tools. They've got all the, they've got all the hacking code, and they've got everything, right? And they are based in Iran, right? They're in an office in Iran. How do you shut that down? Like, literally, how do you shut that? Like, how do you shut that down? What, you're going to go and send, like, the police? You're going to send some woke police officers to Iran? Hello, we've come to close you down. Like, it's not going to work. They get to continue with impunity, right? They get to do whatever they want. If there are sleeper cells operating in the United Kingdom, for example, and they are being told, right, when you get to the United Kingdom, I will pay you. I will put £1,000 a month or whatever into this account for you. And what I want you to do, I want you to work your way up local council in Birmingham, whatever, just go to the United Kingdom, become a citizen, and then I want you to apply to be a local councillor. And we will support you as much as we can. And you will get from that, we will put £1,000 a month into this account. It will be an offshore account. It'll never be traced back to the IRGC. Do you think that could be happening? This is how you subvert a country, guys. All right, this is how you subvert a country. And the United Kingdom, I've spoke about this so many times. So many times I've gone so far in depth with this, talking about how far gone we already are. And then when you get that guy there at local council level, guess what? You then say, right, now you're at local council. I want you to make sure this company gets this particular contract. And then guess who owns that company? And guess where that money's going? Yeah, that money's that. You see how it works? We're fucked. And the solution to this is very painful. It's very painful, and I don't think it can happen, guys. All right, I don't think it can happen. And the problem is, we're dealing with people who are in charge don't understand how these mechanisms work. I can spot these things straight away. Like, if you're a plumber, right? Just hear me out. If you're my dad had a plumber go to his house. He's renting a house out. And they had to have something done with the heating. I don't know what it was. I think it was it doesn't matter. I think it was the boiler. Anyway, the plumber came in and my dad said, right, this is the problem. And the plumber said, yeah. He looked and he said, all this needs changing, mate. He said, you're not going to be able to find the trouble spot. It all needs to come out and it'll be cheaper that way. Otherwise, you're going to be messing about. Anyway, my dad, he was like, no, we'll have it done. I'll get somebody else out and just get him to change these bits that my dad thinks it is. Obviously, my dad's not a plumber. Guess what? My dad had to change everything, and it cost him maybe twice as much in the long run. Now, what I'm getting at is, if you do something as a job and you do something constantly, you can spot things, right? You can spot things that are not right, and you know the solution straight away. For example, if I look at like a foreign military, I just look at them, I can tell whether they've used their weapons, whether they're competent. There's a really high-pitched screaming, and I don't think it's my tinnitus. Whatever, it's done. So if I look at a foreign military, right, and I see them all standing there with their kit and equipment, I'll be able to tell straight away just by looking at them if they're competent with a high degree of accuracy. High degree of accuracy, because that's what I do. If we're talking about subversion, we're talking about infiltration. Again, look what's happening. Look what's happening to our country. And then we're wondering, like, why all these strange, your local council, why did they get that contract? Why did they get that contract? How come those have get? Because we're the masses of subversion, guys. The masses of subversion. I would say Birmingham Council. I would say Birmingham City. Remember, Birmingham City they've gone bankrupt, right, because of all the contracts they're paying. Where's that money going? Who's in charge of those? Where are those private companies that they're paying? Where are those companies registered to? So can you see how, like, asymmetric warfare, non-conventional warfare, subversion, it's actually a better tactic, right? Especially when you're you're targeting you're targeting a developed Western, you're targeting a developed Western nation. So what are you going to do? You're going to spend all your money on missiles, developing this, developing that, developing this. You're never going to beat the US. You are not going to beat the Americans, guys. Nobody's going to beat the Americans. Fisticuffs. Nobody. Not a chance. So why would you even bother? You wouldn't, right? You wouldn't bother. What you do is you would say, right, okay, let's just take one person, right? Take one person. Let me lay this out for you again. So let's just say Migrant X. That's his name, X. Jesus, what? Give me a second. There's a really high-pitched scream that keeps happening. I don't think it's my tinnitus. It might be a directed energy weapon. So let's just say Migrant X, right? Gentleman number X, right? He comes to the United Kingdom and he's been funded by country Y, right? Let's just leave it there, right? So what they do is they get these people into the countries and they say, right, Gentleman X, Operator X, I'm going to put in this account every month £1,000 for your living expenses, right? Go to that country, claim state benefits or whatever. They will pay you. They will give you a house, right? I want you to be in this specific town. Find your own way there. When you're in that town, right? I'm going to keep paying you. I'm going to leave it to your own. I might check in on you every now and then. What I want you to do is I want you to keep applying for jobs at the local council. And then I want you to work your way up and become a councillor. A local councillor. Ideally, I want you to be in business procurement, but try and get, we understand that it's not always going to work that way, but try and work your way up, right? So now this guy, he has a little bit of financial freedom, right? Because he's got, he's got his state welfare, he's got his welfare benefits, he's got his house paid for, right? And he's also got £1,000 a month going into a secret account that nobody knows about, right? So he's all right, he can, he's all right. He's got that ability to keep pushing and pushing and pushing at that job. Maybe that job's not giving him much money. Maybe he's just volunteering. He can keep going, right? And over time, might take 3, 4, 5, might take 10 years. When you're subverting a country, these are the time frames you're looking at, right? So now this guy, right? So now this guy gets in the position of power, right? He's in the right position now, okay? This is local council level, right? So he's in this position now of local council, right? And then he says, then they say to him, right, listen, Operator X, you're now in charge of procurement or whatever. We really need this company, this particular company, to win this particular contract. Could be anything. Could be construction. Could be waste management. Could be anything. Doesn't really matter. Guess what? Guess who owns that company? Yeah, the country Y own that company. That's a foreign company, foreign backed. Yes, it might be registered in Britain, but that money, any profit from that money is going back to the regime. So now Operator X gives them the contract. Guess what? Operator X has paid for himself, and Operator X is actually making money indirectly for the regime. So now the regime have a steady income coming in now. They have money from our taxes through a vessel company going back to the host nation. Well, guess what? Country Y, they've got some more money now. They can put another operator in charge. They can say the same to another operator. They can say, right, Operator, I don't know, November, N. I want you to give him the same brief. Right, but this time I want you to target, I don't know, Tamworth City Council or whatever, we're going to support you. We've already got a support network there. So, and they can, they work off each other. And then guess what? They do exactly the same. This company now gets a contract, that contract, then you see you see the mess that everything's in? That's asymmetric warfare. That's non-conventional warfare. And all of this is legal. There's no laws being broke there, guys. There is nothing's illegal about what I've just said. Nothing. That is all above board, legal destabilization of your host country. And we all think about war. It's going to be like these soldiers. It's not. We're in it right now. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to. Sorry. Sometimes I go off on a tangent and bore people, but like the state of affairs that we are in right now, it's unbelievable. Sean is saying they're not allowed to shoot our soldiers until they put their nail varnish on and lipstick. Right. I think we must be talking about someone else. What motor oil do you use on your hair, Sean? It's so shiny, like a star that's collapsed in on itself. There's not actually anything on my hair. There's not actually anything on my hair. It's just beautiful. No, there's no oil or anything on that. Christian and Defender is saying, wake up fast, Patriots. And Tony Wilson is saying, you are correct about that one, because war really goes down. We probably won't even know until way afterwards. Is your home detachable, Sean? Can you tow it away? What a fantastic thumbnail as well. Ryan is saying, is your home detachable? No, it's not. Can you tow it away anytime you wish? No, it's like made of bricks and stuff, and I really struggle to tow it because it's got no wheels. Catalytic Converter is saying, we are finished as a country. We are. I've just got back from shopping and it made me feel sick. Why is it all the foreign kids are not at school, but we get fines every... Okay, Catalytic Converter, just let everyone know the kids are off school at the moment. Most kids are off school, so I'm just throwing it out there. And Rod Panhard is saying, everyone should investigate Operation Cyber Polygon, the drill for a cyber pandemic. Just like Event 201 told us how they plan to implement the COVID pandemic number. Operations, let me Google this. Operation Cyber Polygon. So Operation Cyber Polygon, Cyber Polygon, I think it's the same one, is an annual international cybersecurity training initiative aimed at increasing global cyber resilience through simulation and previously high-level conferences. It was designed to help corporate technical teams develop skills in repelling cyber attacks while engaging management in dialogue on cyber security. Right, you know what? Right, let me share this with you. Let me share this with you for 2 seconds, because it is quite interesting, actually. Right, so we're just having a little chat now about Operation Cyber Polygon, and this has interested me, so let me share this. I think this is the one. Is this the one? I'm assuming this is the one, guys. Operation, Cyber Polygon. Cyber Polygon 2024. So I guess this was like, I don't know. This year, the training took place online on Bizone Cyber Polygon platform in Saudi Arabia. In the 24 hours of the training, participants from all over the world practiced repelling a sophisticated targeted attack and further investigated the incident using classical forensic and threat hunting techniques. I don't know what any of that means, guys. I don't know what any of that means at all. I have no idea about that. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, the crux of this live stream, because I'm going to be closing this down now because I've got tons to do, and I definitely am going to be back on pretty much, what time are we on? I'm going to try and get back on at 12. I'm going to try and get back on at 12, guys, because there's loads of stuff happening in the UAP UFO space. So I'm going to be jumping, I'm going to be jumping up. I'm going to be jumping on and talking about that, guys. But the crux of this live stream, I've been talking about what's happening in Iran right now, off the coast of Iran. The Iranians are conducting war rehearsals. The Americans are conducting war rehearsals. It doesn't look like there's going to be a deal achieved by either side. The terms are too stark. Remember, 20% of the world's oil runs through the Strait of Hormuz. So if you guys have got a diesel car, right? Just consider that if you have a diesel car and we have a full-scale shit hits the fan, diesel will be taken off the market, guys. That's what I'm saying. That's my prediction. Diesel will be taken off the market. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you guys, I am going to close it down. I'm going to close this down. I'll be back on very soon. I'm going to be back on very soon, and we're going to be talking about aliens. We're going to be talking about UFOs. We're going to be talking about all sorts of weird stuff because I think it's coming. And I do, guys. I think it's coming. I'm seeing the signs of this. I'm seeing the footsteps. I'm seeing the Overton window open. Of the Overton window of what's acceptable to talk about has been blown wide open. So I will be back on later, guys. If you are on and you've not done so already, please hit those buttons down below: the like, comment, subscribe, bell notification, and keep posted because I'll be back on very soon. I'll catch you guys later.